Hey guys, it's Will here and welcome to my second 8th edition battle report. So today Sam's Tyranids taking on my Salamanders and we're going 2,000 points. From what we've seen, most lists that would have been 1750 before translate to about 2,000 now. The one exception being Tyranids, who seem to get more for their points, whereas everyone else is getting less for their points. So we think 2,000 is going to be the new 1750, so expect that to be where our points are. We're going matched play, Maelstrom of War, and we've already learnt a few things from our first game. There's quite a good steep learning curve with 8th edition, new things that we were doing wrong in the old game, particularly with terrain, the previous game with terrain, and also making the most out of our stratagems and command points. So it should be very interesting to see how this goes. We've also got our hands on the objective cards for this game, so we're actually going to be able to show you those. Anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at the armies. And here's my 2,000 point Salamanders army. Although they are Salamanders only in appearance, they don't really have anything special for being Salamanders yet, but I'm sure that will come in time. Got a standard captain leading my force. He's captain in power armour, and as you can see he's got the combi flamer and the power fist on there. And then I've got a squad of stern guard. 8 of these guys. I've got 3 combi melters in the front there, and the rest just have the regular stern guard special bolters. And I brought a rhino transport for them, just the storm bolter on there. Be interesting to see if rhinos are actually going to be any good as transports. They're certainly not the cheap disposable vehicles they were, but they may be a good way of getting the guys to the right place reliably. Got a Terminator Librarian. He's got Stormbolter and Force Axe. Haven't picked his powers yet, although I know one of them is certainly going to be Warp Speed, because... is it called Warp Speed? I think it is. It's the one that allows you to reroll charges, because he is coming in with a Terminator squad. 5 of these guys, Stormbolters, Power Fists, got one obviously Power Sword in there and an Assault Cannon. And the idea is to strike these in, have the Librarian give them the rerolls to charge, and be able to pull off a charge on the turn they strike down. Got a Dreadnought there, standard Blackreach Dreadnought with the multi-melter and the underslung Stormbolter. And then I have my Tactical Marines. Got 3 squads here in 3 very different loadouts. So the first squad has a Flamer, a Combi Flamer and a Missile Launcher, and they've got a Rhino Transport. Second squad is actually going to run on foot. They've got a plasma cannon and a plasma gun. And then the third squad is just 5 guys rather than the 10. Got flamer and combi flamer in there, and their Razorback has a twin-linked heavy bolter. Well, it's not twin-linked, it's just a double heavy bolter now. Then we've got some heavy support. Keen to see how this Predator does, so we've got quad las cannon variant on there now. Supposed to be quite good against vehicles and monsters now, but we shall see. And finally, my Centurions. Now these guys have had an interesting history. They were actually built and painted to play in the previous edition, but then with Taylor 4 Gamers and other things, I never actually got to give them a run out in the previous edition, where Grav Centurions were the hotness, but now they're not supposed to be as good, but potentially still quite reliable. So I've got 3 of them, Grav Cannons and Hurricane Bolters. Now, I was originally thinking of trying a Land Raider out in this list, but there were so many other things I wanted to try that the Land Raiders got bumped, but expect to see a Land Raider Redeemer joining this force at some point very soon. I've had the model for years, just, yeah, too many options to play with right now. Anyway, let's see what Sam's Tyranids are brought. And here's Sam's 2,000 points Tyranids. Now, while most armies found they became more expensive, Tyranids have had a big points drop, so we've got a lot of bugs to cover here. Starting off, we've got a Broodlord. Don't see those very often. He's gone back to being an HQ character rather than being a unit upgrade. Then we've got the Hive Tyrant, so he's got Venom Cannon, Bone Sword and Lash Whip, and he's got 2 Tyrant Guard that will be running with him, although they're not in the same squad, but obviously they'll hang around with him. Then we've got, that looks like 30 Hormagaunts, 20 Gene Stealers and 30 Termagants, so we've got a nice solid core of bugs here. And then bigger stuff behind, we've got Tyranid warriors, 5 of them, all with bone swords and scything talons. Raveners with scything talons and devourers. And then Deathleaper, who I believe is going to be rather nasty to deal with. I think from what I've heard he can come up within an inch of an enemy model. That's potentially very nasty because I'm assuming he can charge off that. Hive Guard with the shot cannons. They were really nasty last time, made a mess of my vehicles, so we're going to need to keep an eye on them. And a Toxicrene. I can't remember last time I saw a Toxicrene in a battle. And then a pair of Carnifexes, Scything Talons on both of those, and unlike the last game we discovered they don't actually act like a unit. They instead deploy together, but they're then free to move off and do what they want. Anyway, that's 2,000 points of Tyranids. So we rolled up Contact Lost as our mission tonight, so it's the one where you have to hold objectives to secure objectives, and we realised you don't pick deployment zones, it says determine, not pick, and so we randomly rolled up the long one, Hammer and Anvil, which doesn't really suit me, to be honest, because I just find it awkward and it reduces the chances to refuse a flank, but that's what we got. And Sam was quite fortunate to have 5 of the objectives down his end of the table. They'd kind of been clustered to one side, so I've only got a single objective here and the rest are in the centre and spread out throughout his deployment zone. Back and forth on the deployment, Sam left 3 things in reserve. These Raveners, the Swarmlord, and then this, not Swarmlord, I don't mean Swarmlord, I mean Deathleaper. We were talking about Swarmlord a minute ago. This, Sam realised he was supposed to have an Exocrine in the list, but he'd left it at home, so the guys here were very kind to lend us this Morlock, which is going to proxy as a Trigon Prime. Don't like proxying, but it's what we got to do to make this game work, without having to send Sam home again, because I've already had to send him home for his Broodlord. So Tyranid deployment is obviously blocking out the front of the deployment zone. We've got Hormagaunts, Tyranid warriors behind them. We got the Gene Stealers, and I think the Broodlord, yeah, he's at the back there. Then we've got the Toxicrene at the back, Carnifexes, Tyrant Guard and Hive Guard, Tyrant and Termagants on that flank. All of this is really looking to get forward. It's a slight drawback Sam's got of having all of his stuff wanting to get forward and most of the objectives being in his deployment zone. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Over here I clustered most of my forces over in this side of the board, trying to make the most of these ruins. Got 1 small combat squad here, and their other half in the back securing my 1 objective. Predator down here with some nice arcs of fire. Stern Guard in the centre, supported by the tactical squad in the Rhino. Half tactical squad in the Razorback. Centurions looking to square off with the Carnifexes, who are their most sort of obvious target at the moment. And then the Dreadnought supporting their flank. So I feel vastly outnumbered here, but in reserves I do have Squad of Terminators and a Librarian, and we've both picked the Warlord trait that gives us a 6+ Feel No Pain. Mine's on my Captain and his is on his Broodlord. Anyway, that is deployment. I finished deploying first, so I should go first, but Sam's going to get a chance to seize the initiative. No, he hasn't seized the initiative, and just want to thank Andy at 40K Gaming for letting us come in a day early to play this. And yeah, this is their board here at 40K Gaming. This is a rather cool city fight board they've got out. Anyway, on to Salamanders, turn 1. So started off my turn with the first of these new mission cards, Mission Critical Objective, which I rolled a 2 for, which meant I had to secure Objective 2, and if there was an enemy at the start of the turn that I basically killed off the objective and claimed from, I would get a D3 instead of 1. Unfortunately, Objective 2 had quite a few enemies on it, specifically a Hive Tyrant, Hive Guard, Tyranid, Tyrant Guard, Termagants, just everything, so that even if I dropped my Terminators down and pulled off a charge, no chance there. So instead we focused on getting first blood and moving into position. and the Predator stayed still, as did the squad up here. Everything else moved forward a bit, and then opened up on that lead Carnifex with the Dreadnought and the Predator, and between them they were able to wipe the Carnifex out. I then fired the Centurions, although only 2 of them got into range because they are slow, at the the Hive Guard. Unfortunately had a really bad roll to hit with their grav weapons and didn't do a lot of damage. Put 1 wound on them from the Centurions, and then another one from the Rhino's Stormbolter. Finally, the Razorback's Heavy Bolter killed a couple of Gene Stealers, but yeah, apart from that Carnifex, which did grab me first blood, not a lot of damage done, but it's only turn 1, and we have a long way to go. Let's go to Tyranid turn 1. Sam started his turn by drawing overwhelming firepower, so wanting to shoot something with this combat-focused Tyranid army, so good luck with that. It all surged forward, pretty much as you'd expect, and Deathleaper popped up next to my Captain, Sternguard and Rhino, well, next to the Rhino with the Captain and the Sternguard in, and the Trigon Prime popped up at the back here, keeping 9 inches away from everything. Shooting phase was... oh, psychic phase, he managed to cast the Horror onto my Centurions, meaning they're at -1 to hit next turn. He also got off Catalyst on the Gene Stealers to give them what is effectively a 5+, Feel No Pain, and he tried to cast Dominion on the Hormagaunts, which would allow them... Onslaught on the Hormagaunts, which would have allowed them to run and charge, but he failed, so they didn't get a charge, which was good because they had a really good run and would have been in range to threaten something. Shooting was largely ineffective. He put a single hull point onto that Rhino that used to be there with the Trigon, and his Hive Tyrant shot for the Dreadnought, but its Venom Cannon didn't do anything of note. He actually forgot to fire the Hive Guard, but we only realised at the end of the turn. So yeah, it looks like it's Sam who's left his brain at home tonight. Forgot one of his models, had to go back. Forgot another one, had to borrow one, and now he's forgetting to shoot. So this gives me hope that I might pull out a rare win here. Assault phase was rather brutal though. Carnifex got into combat with this Rhino and did 6 hull points to, or 6 wounds, sorry, not hull points, wounds for nothing in return. And the combined force of Deathleaper and the Trigon both managed to charge that Rhino there. +1 to charges on Trigons for adrenal glands is really good. And yeah, that Rhino was wiped out, but nobody died. And then we realised Deathleaper pretty much had to consolidate into combat, because you have to end up closer than the nearest enemy model, and he was only an inch or so away. So yeah, as I read it, he can not only can he consolidate into combat, but he pretty much has to. But yeah, didn't score any points for Sam that turn because overwhelming firepower didn't do anything, but he's wrecked one of my Rhinos and got some of his nastiest monsters up in my face already. Let's see how the Salamanders respond to this in Space Marine turn 2. So, as we head into the second Space Marine turn, drew Area Denial, so I had to keep guys away from the centre, and classic Secure Objective 6, which was going to be easier because I had a fair chunk around there. The big gambit I took this turn was to bring down my Terminators 9 inches away from the Hive Tyrant, with my Librarian just behind them. My intention was then to use the Librarian's Veil of Time. I think I called it Warp Speed in deployment, it's not, it's Veil of Time, to allow them to get the charge off. But before that, these guys disembarked from their Rhino, the one that was stuck in combat with the Carnifex, ready to take on the Trigon, and the Dreadnought and Centurions moved up to face off with the Carnifex. So Psychic Phase, Veil of Time, failed to cast. I then used Smite, which I had to use a command point to get a reroll to even cast that, to take a couple of wounds off the Hive Tyrant, but they were popped onto his friendly neighbourhood Tyrant Guard. Rest of the shooting saw the Trigon taken down by combined fire from that combat squad, the Predator, this squad, and the Dreadnought. It was the Dreadnought that finally did it, And then the centurions, because they were originally planning to target the Carnifex and then realised I couldn't because vehicles actually tie you up in combat now, took out a few more wounds off the Tyrant Guard, leaving them with just one model left. Didn't do quite that much. There was still 2 models there at that point, but also took down one of the Hive Guard. Heavy bolter on the Razorback, killed a Gene Stealer, and the Terminator Stormbolters killed a few of the Termagants before the Assault Cannon finished off one of the Tyrant Guard and left the other one on a single wound. Assault phase, Terminators charged, although I had to use a second command point to get them in. I rolled a 5 and a 1 and then re-rolled the 1 on a 6, so we're in. And the Dreadnought charged into the Carnifex, and the Captain went into the Death Leaper, who was already tied up with those guys. Over here, the Terminators went first, and I was kind of hoping to do more than they did in the end. The Power Sword guy killed off the Tyrant Guard, but then the Power Fists really woofed to hit. 8 attacks, 4+ to hit, and I got 2 hits. So many 3s in there, that -1 to hit with Power Fists really hurt me. But I was able to put a single wound onto the Tyrant. Carnifex made an out-of-sequence move to put 6 wounds onto the Dreadnought, costing Sam 2 command points. And then I managed to beat up the Lictor down here with the Death Leaper with the Stern Guard and the Captain. Captain did 4 wounds, Stern Guard finished him off. Dreadnought put 6 wounds onto... Oh no, sorry, it was 3. I only managed to do 1 wound. 3 wounds onto the Carnifex, and the Hive Tyrant killed 2 Terminators in revenge for the death of his Tyrant Guard. So, pretty balanced. Death Leaper's gone, the Trigon's gone, but I've still got this Tyrant and the Carnifex running around causing me problems. Objectives wise, I scored objective 6 because that Rhino is still up. That's that, and I think one of the Stone Guard squad securing that. But wasn't able to kill enough guys to get area denial, and my mission critical objective hasn't been scored yet. But don't need to discard because we can hold plenty more objectives than we are now. So it's 1 point, leaving me on 2-0 as we head into the second Tyranid turn. Okay, and turn 2 was the turn where the Tyranids really started to make their numbers count and overwhelm my lines. Objectives were overwhelming firepower, supremacy, and big game hunter. So, the Hormagaunts swarmed down there. Gene Stealers came through the ruins. They could run and charge in the same turn and made good use of that to engage the Stone Guard. And the Termagants and Toxicrene turned round to threaten the Terminator Librarian. Shooting phase was largely ineffective, although the Hive Guard managed to put a wound on the Razorback, and I believe it was the Termagants who put a wound on the Librarian through sheer weight of numbers. But then it was all about the charges. As you can see, the Termagants got into the Librarian, but the Toxicrene wasn't able to. Gene Stealers got into both the Captain and the Stern Guard, and the Hormagaunts got into the tactical squad in there. Gene Stealers went first and just absolutely butchered the Stern Guard. Not a single one left alive, and they also put 3 wounds on the Captain, leaving him with, I believe, 2 left. Iron Halo saved my butt there. I'd have been dead without that Iron Halo. The Broodlord, oh yes, the Broodlord, who is separate to that squad, charged into the Rhino, but we'll come back to that in a moment. I then used my out-of-turn out-of-sequence combat attack for 2 command points to put some damage onto the Hive Tyrant with the Terminators. Power Sword did a wound, and the Power Fists did another 3, so he's down to just 4 wounds left, so might actually get him next turn, but I fear he may have some retribution in mind for me. Where else? So, I can't remember the rest of the orders, but basically the Hormagaunts killed 2 tactical marines for 1 Hormagaunt in return. The Broodlord and Carnifex together brought the Rhino down to just a single wound. Oh no, the Broodlord put the Rhino down to a single wound. The Carnifex finished off my Dreadnought, giving him Big Game Hunter. Hive Tyrant managed to only do a single wound to the Terminators, which was saved. And the Librarian was fine against the Termagants, but killed one in return, but obviously they're not going to be running anywhere. There's a lot of combat sort of back and forth thing here, and it's a job to remember what happened, but yeah, we're getting there. We're getting the hang of this new edition. So points wise, that gave him obviously Big Game Hunter for killing the Dreadnought, but also D3 for Supremacy because he's holding several. And he's rolled a 1 for that, so that is 2 points. So we're at 2-2 at the moment, although that could all be about to change as we go into Space Marine turn 3. So only one tactical objective for the Space Marines this turn, Big Game Hunter, and yeah, should be able to do that. Plenty of big game on the board. So first thing I did was swivel and back my Rhino out of combat, so the Carnifex was freed up, as was the Broodlord, but I want to keep my captain engaged with the Gene Stealers in case he managed to do something. I had to swivel this tactical squad out of the way to let the Rhino turn and generally get them where they needed to be. And pretty much everything else kind of stayed still. These guys, the Predator, stayed there. Centurions just drew line of sight on the Carnifex. Oh, and these guys disembarked from the Rhino, Razorback, and headed here to try and deal with the Hive Guard. Shooting phase saw the Centurions take down, or do some wounds to the Carnifex, but it took the... the Centurions did finish off the Carnifex, and then the Predator wanted to shoot the Broodlord, but because he's a character and he wasn't the closest model, I couldn't. Now I thought this was a bit strange because the actual closest model were the Gene Stealers who were engaged in combat, so I couldn't target them, yet I also couldn't target the Broodlord even though he was the closest unengaged model, but rules as written, it's closest model, not unengaged. So the Predator went for a Tyranid Warrior instead and killed one of them. Another one died to an overcharged plasma cannon shot from this squad, so down to just 2 Tyranid Warriors now, which is nice. Here, this squad didn't have so much luck, only managed to put a single wound on the Hive Guard. And the Razorback was closest to the Broodlord, so was able to put 4 wounds onto him, but it's not going to be enough to stop him rampaging through my army next turn. In the combat phase, Terminators swang first and finished off the Hive Tyrant, but then his Lash Whip allows him to still make his attacks after he dies, and killed 2 Terminators. At the end I consolidated into the Hive Guard. Other than that, the Gene Stealers put the hurt on the captain and finally finished him off, and the Hormagaunts over there wiped out the survivors from that combat squad. Librarian killed another Termagant for no damage in return. So come the end of the turn, I've not quite got my mission critical objective, those Hive Guard are denying it. I haven't quite got area denial, the Gene Stealers were able to consolidate back to deny me that, but I've got Big Game Hunter for both the Carnifex and the Hive Tyrant, so that's a point. I'm possibly not going to do too well though, because he's got Warlord this turn, so that I think makes it 3-3, and we head into Tyranid turn 3. So Sam had loads of objective cards to draw this turn, and he was certainly set on capitalising on it. So the Hormagaunts, being freed up from their previous combat, ran across here and wiped out the Rhino for no damage in return. The Gene Stealers likewise smashed into the tactical squad and killed them. Up this end, the Broodlord cast Catalyst on the Hormagaunts, Gene Stealers, cast it on the Gene Stealers to give them a 5-up invuln on top of their 5-up Feel No Pain on top of their 5-up invuln, making them surprisingly hard to take down, as my tactical squad found out when their Overwatch fire was very ineffective. Over here, the Librarian killed 2 Termagants for 2 wounds in return, and he's on 1 last wound now. And the Toxicrene got into combat with the Terminator, failed to do any damage to him, and took 3 wounds in return. So, points-wise, Sam scored several that turn. He had the the Warp one, Mastery of the Warp with the Broodlord, and Secure Objective 2, which he was able to swarm around, and number 3 with the Tyranid warriors who are in there. I'd said there were 2 previously, there's actually 3, there was a third one hiding in there. So he's starting to take a little bit of a lead on points now, but he did lose his Raveners because he forgot to bring them on. He'd left them in reserves for the opportune moment and then just completely forgot to have them turn up. So yeah, once again Sam's left his brain at home, but I think he's still going to beat me despite it. Anyway, here we go, Space Marine turn 4. Again, only drawing 1 objective this turn, but it was Secure Objective 5, which was right under those guys there, so that is an objective scored, and something I am not going to complain about. Finally managed to deal with the Gene Stealers this turn. The Centurions pushed up through the ruins, and it was the Hurricane Bolters. That fact that they're now rapid fire 6, so they're effectively doing 12 shots at half range, is brutal. And yeah, that with a few wounds from the Grav as well, wiped out all bar 2 of the Gene Stealers, who then failed their battle shock without even needing to roll for it. These guys and the Razorback redirected and shot up the Hormagaunts, then charged the Razorback with the hope of pulling the Hormagaunts away from Objective 6, but wasn't quite enough, and the tail end of them are still within 8 of the Broodlord, so he's now Synapse in this edition, so they didn't flee. And over here, the one lone Terminator had the Librarian cast Veil of Time, so he got to swing first, put 2 wounds on the Toxicrene, and these guys did nothing in return. But then just the sheer weight of Termagants brought down the Librarian, so I may have been able to use my Psychic Powers well this turn, but it won't be happening again. Points-wise, that just gives me the 1 point. I wasn't quite able to force area denial on the middle yet, because that sneaky Broodlord is lurking there. Would have liked to shot him with something, but I can't, and that's just frustrating. But hey, them's the rules. So a little bit behind as we head into the 4th Tyranid turn. So with the number of units on the board rapidly dropping, the turns are getting quicker. The Termagants moved off Objective 1 towards Objective 4 because he's needing that at some point, I think. The Hormagaunts stayed in combat with the Razorback and failed to do anything, although they were catalysted by the Broodlord. Tyranid warriors carried on lurking in there ominously, and the Toxicrene finally finished off the Terminator in combat. So, yeah, points-wise, I think you grabbed a couple that turn, didn't you, Sam? Oh, just marker 4 because he got one of his Termagants up there to get that. So he's taking a little bit of a lead, but it's not all over yet. Here we go with Space Marine turn 5. Once again, only a single objective marker for me to draw this turn, and it was Secure Objective 1, which wasn't going to happen because that was over there. So at this point it's really just killing stuff for fun because he's way ahead on points and objectives being held. So I advanced these guys because Flamers can advance and shoot, hoping they might deal with the Broodlord. But they were still close to the Hormagaunts, so I had to back the Razorback out of combat, which then freed up the Centurions to destroy the Hormagaunts in a hail of Grav and heavy Hurricane Bolter fire. Those Hurricane Bolters have done really well today, so that's them gone. The Predator was able to line up a shot on the Toxicrene and kill that. And then these guys got 6 flamer hits on the Broodlord and failed to do a single wound. Not even like he did wounds and they were saved. Didn't even do a single wound. So a bit disappointed there. And the Broodlord is clearly going to butcher them next turn. So no points scored. Sam's basically got this now. But we're going to play it out for, or at least to the end of this turn. End of turn 5. So here we go. Tyranid, turn 5. So, 5th Tyranid turn, and things actually started looking up for the Space Marines. The Termagants just scurried back over to get Objective 1, scoring that. But in the middle here, the Hive Guard and the Broodlord both tried to charge this tactical squad. Hive Guard went first, and the Flamers killed one, and they failed the charge anyway. And then when the Broodlord charged in, the Flamers killed him as well, which gave me Warlord and Area Denial, which has pulled the score back to 5-7, because that got me because of the Warlord score there. Sorry, 5-8. Sorry, not 5-7. I'm hearing 5-8. But alas, the game then ended at the end of turn 5. So that is a Tyranid victory. And what can I say? Nids are really strong in this edition. Yo, Sam. Good game, mate. Nice one. Alright, we'll join you in a second for the post-game. Okay, so a much closer game in the end there, but ultimately still a victory for the Tyranids. They really are resurgent in this edition, but the Marines certainly held their own. Sam, what did you think of that game?
Yeah, well, I certainly like it. I'm a bit unsure what to do with the Tyranids. My Tyranid collection is rather large, but there's not a lot of it at the same time. I've got one unit of Genestealers, one big unit of Hormigans, masses of Termagants. So it's going to be interesting to see how going forward, although I want to try out my other factions now we actually have the books.
Yes, we managed to get all the books today so we can properly list up some factions, and I'm keen to eventually give them all a go over the next few weeks. I know that I'd like to play against something other than Tyranids, because Tyranids are proper scary now.
Well, they're one of the few factions I think that actually got cheaper.
Yeah, they got big points reductions while everything else seems to have gone up in points. I think because vehicles have gone up in points, and obviously Nids don't have vehicles.
Yeah, there is that. I did find that big monstrous creatures aren't as resilient as I would assume, because most things are wounding me on 5s now rather than 6s. Yes, I've got more wounds, but my saves stayed the same.
Yeah,
So
I mean those centurions. It wasn't the grav that was doing the damage. It was the hurricane bolters. They were just tearing through things because you just sheer volume of dice.
yeah, 36 shots at half range, so it's absolutely insane. I think centurions with heavy bolters or las cannons.
You're gonna have 18 shots per model on the heavy bolter dudes.
Yeah, that's just a bit mental.
And I think the las cannons will probably want to be split firing off now because they've got the long range. The hurricane bolt's got the short range, and las cannons are good. The Predator certainly did some work tonight. Being able to survive was a factor in it. You know, I had to shoot, got to shoot every 5 turn on all 5 turns. But yeah, the Predator did some work for me.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really get to him. That's the thing.
Yeah, I used the long board edge deployment for my advantage there.
I say I went white with the hammer and anvil and that side because there was 5 objectives in it pretty much.
Yeah, the objectives played into your hands a lot there. I think if the objectives had been more balancedly spread, which is as much my fault in deployment as anything, would have I'd have been able to get some more markers and may have pulled the points a bit closer.
I think I'm going to get my Chaos out and see how they perform now. I'm looking forward to getting my Zinch out.
Chaos, yes, Chaos is good. I think my next game I've got planned in, I said I'd play my Marines against Dave, but certainly keen to give the Eldar a run out, and the Necrons, well, apparently Necrons got really good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about Necrons. They've probably gone up in points like everyone else, but their reanimation is now, you do it at the end of turn, or end of phase, something like that.
Yeah, and it's every single turn they get to reanimate. So even if they've died on turn 1, they still get to test every single turn for that dude. So yeah, they're going to be hard to take down. And hopefully the monolith got better. I mean, it couldn't have got any worse. So...
It got more expensive.
Yeah, but it couldn't have got any worse. Trust me.
It could. It could be toughness 4 now.
I somehow don't think that's going to happen.
No, neither do I.
It's going to be toughness like 8 with a 2+ save and 15 wounds or something.
I say we're getting ranty. Game was good fun. It's way too late and I need to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Alright, well thanks a lot for watching guys, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.